Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off with the 8th Army mops up in Tunisia. We're now on to Convoy survivors rescued after battle with U-boats. February 1943. Great Atlantic Convoy Battle. On March 18th, the British issued the account of one of the greatest winter battles of the Atlantic, between a pack of U-boats and convoy escorts. The battle, which lasted for 3 days and nights in February, was fought out by British, U.S., and fighting French escort ships, together with Liberator and Sunderland aircraft. The convoy did not escape without loss, but heavy damage was inflicted on the U-boats, 3 of which were sunk and many others probably sunk. The picture on the left show some of the survivors from one of the torpedoed ships being assisted aboard a rescuing vessel. So, see them getting up, saying, "Hey, thanks guys, we were not enjoying our time out here." And then the picture above shows the rescue of 3 British seamen from a raft on which they had lived for 83 days before being sighted and picked up by a U.S. Navy patrol boat. Man, can you imagine that? 83 days. That would be awful. 2 other companions had died on the raft and were buried at sea. The 3 castaways who survived had lived or existed for almost 12 weeks on fish, birds, and rainwater. Think about that. That must have been kind of awful feeling. But I do not, for all those that were lost at sea and then found much later, or even those just lost at sea, I greatly feel bad for them because they suffered ways that we don't even think of, really, usually. But just awful, harrowing experiences. Rapid construction of America's Burma Road. February 1943. New road to Tokyo. The U.S. State Department announced on March 18, 1942, a Canadian-U.S. agreement for the construction under the auspice of the Joint Defense Board of the Alaskan Highway linking the continental United States with Alaska via British Columbia and Yukon. Work on America's Burma Road was begun at once, and despite climatic and physiographic difficulties, 10,000 soldiers and 6,000 civilian workers under the direction of the United States Public Roads Administration pushed the construction work ahead at the rate of 8 miles a day, bridging some 200 streams and laying the 24-foot wide roadway over mountain ranges, rivers, and bogs. Intended to be used by the end of the year, the highway was designed to be one of the most important lines of communication for reinforcing Allied forces in the Pacific, as well as to carry supplies to Russia and China with practically no risk. The picture above gives some impression of the obstacles which had to be blasted from the path of the highway. Those on the right, well, here, we'll just show you this one. Look at this. Look at this huge mound of dirt and everything. And yeah, that road, can you imagine that? In 8 miles a day on a road. Think about how long it takes for them to construct a road now. And the fact that they did this so fast, it's just crazy. The right shows above the highway in use at a point where transport drivers may obtain rest and refreshments. So it's a rest stop. That's just what it is. It's just a rest stop. We have those all over the United States highways now, so makes sense that they would make them here. It's a long drive. Give drivers their main intention is for long drives. To give people a place to just stop You know, if they have to use the restroom, there's restrooms usually in them. Sometimes there's vending machines, not always. It depends on the rest stop. But also you can just sit there, take a little nap, and then go back on your way. And then below, another section driven through virgin forest. Now look at this. Just the amount of engineering power here is just crazy to think about. You know, this road that they're constructing, I believe it's still in use today. It's the main road that links Alaska to the continental United States. And it's interesting that it was made here for the war. It's kind of weird to think that before there wasn't a road to Alaska from the continental United States. Because that would mean the only way to get there is by boat. So, but with the invention of this, sorry about that. But with the invention of this, there we go. We don't need that anymore, necessarily. The final offensive on Guadalcanal gets underway. February 9th, 1943. Allies on the offensive in the Pacific. The importance which the Japanese had attached to the Solomons, and especially to the islands of Guadalcanal, where their construction of bases for intended attack upon Australia was interrupted by U.S. landings in August 1942. It was revealed by repeated attempts they made between then and February 1943 to regain control of the island. The strongest of these attempts, launched regardless of losses, involved the occupying U.S. forces and their protecting air and naval units in some of the toughest fighting of the whole Pacific campaign, before it was finally announced on February 9th from Tokyo that Japanese troops had been evacuated from Guadalcanal. The pictures show, top left, right here, U.S. Marines engaged in task of mopping up the island during the final offensive on Guadalcanal, which was launched on January 15th. There we go. They're just mopping up, looking to see if they can find any enemies, if there is any. Below, a command car on the American Army being ferried across a jungle river. I always find this kind of stuff goofy because it's just like, oh yeah, well, we got to get a car across. Well, we'll just put it on a little boat here or a little raft here, and we'll just ferry it across. I mean, it makes sense, but it looks goofy. And then above here, American troops in action on a gun site. Look at that gun. Can you imagine that? The shells for that are huge. I'm just assuming. Well, we can't even see them, but just look at that gun. Whew. I would not want to be the Japanese getting hit by that thing. Americans drive the Japanese from Guadalcanal Island. February 10th, 1943. U.S. victory on Guadalcanal. On February 10th, it was announced from Washington that the whole of Guadalcanal Island was under American control. For 6 months, it had been the scene of heavy fighting between U.S. forces and the Japanese. The loss of this vital Pacific base was a severe defeat for the enemy. The Henderson Airfield, which the Japanese had almost completed when the United States Marines landed on Guadalcanal in August 1942, was intended as an air base for the invasion of Australia. The campaign cost the enemy 75,000 men, 800 aircraft, and 166 warships and transports. During the final offensive, which began on January 15th, U.S. troops killed more than 6,000 of the enemy, capturing 130 prisoners, and vast quantities of materials. The pictures show above an American landing barge at Guadalcanal. Yeah, we see all the men. It looks like they just disembarked. They're like, okay, we're ready. Let's go fight. Which I'm sure some of them don't even look like that guy. Not a very good seaworthy man, I don't think. But yeah, you can see they're kind of like, whew, okay, let's get into this, boys. And then on the right, troops bathing on the island. I would be terrified to do this. I'm just going to let you know. A lot of these islands are infested with snakes, crocodiles, things like that. I can imagine doing this, getting in the water, just going, no, yeah, this will be fine. No way, man. That'd be terrifying. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.